Hey, it's Rob Jr., and today I want you to sit with one simple mindset shift that has the power to rewrite your entire life. Act as if everything always works out for you. Because the truth is, most people wake up expecting problems, expecting stress, expecting the worst. And what you expect, you attract. But imagine waking up every morning believing, deeply, that life bends in your favor, that challenges are simply stepping stones, that the universe is conspiring for you, not against you. Today, I'm going to show you how to step into that identity, how to think like that person, and how to live with the confidence of someone who knows, not hopes, can know that everything is always working out for them. A true identity is the root of everything you do, everything you think, and everything you allow yourself to believe is possible. Most people don't realize this, but their life isn't shaped by their goals, their dreams, or even their habits. Their life is shaped by who they think they are. You will never outperform your identity. You can set big goals, you can write them on your wall, you can visualize them every morning, but if deep down you believe you're someone who always falls short, your actions will follow that belief. You will sabotage yourself without even realizing it. You'll make decisions that quietly maintain the identity you're used to, even if that identity is holding you back. But when you act as if everything always works out, it isn't about blind positivity. It isn't about pretending life is perfect. It's about shifting your identity into someone who trusts themselves, someone who shows up differently, someone who expects good things instead of bracing for the worst. Because once your identity shifts, your choices shift automatically. You don't have to force confidence. You don't have to fake courage. You simply become the version of yourself that responds to life from a place of clarity and strength. Think about how most people live. Their identity is built from their past. Past mistakes, past failures, past labels, past environments. They let who they used to be dictate who they allow themselves to become. They say things like, I've always struggled with discipline. I'm not that kind of person. I've never been confident, and they think they're just being honest. But what they're really doing is cementing their identity in a place they've outgrown. Your past is not your identity. Your patterns are not your identity. Your struggles are not your identity. Your identity is simply the story you tell yourself about who you are. And if you want your life to change, you have to change that story first. The moment you step into the identity of someone who believes everything always works out, you start operating from a completely different internal world. Instead of assuming you'll fail, you assume you'll figure it out. Instead of assuming people will reject you, you assume the right people will connect with you. Instead of assuming the day will bring problems, you assume the day will bring opportunities. And that identity creates its own momentum. It changes your emotional baseline. It shifts your reaction to stress. It builds patience, calmness, and inner certainty. Identity is not about pretending. Identity is about remembering the truth that you are adaptable, capable, resilient, and far more powerful than the version yourself you've been settling for. Every time you act from the identity you want instead of the identity you've been conditioned to live in, you reinforce the shift. That's how transformation happens. Not from one huge leap of faith, but from tiny repeated moments where you show up as the person you are becoming. And you've felt this before. Every time you've set a boundary, every time you stayed disciplined, every time you pushed yourself past your comfort zone, every time you followed through, even when it was uncomfortable. That was your higher identity showing through. That was your future self stepping forward for a moment to remind you who you're capable of being. The problem is people feel that version of themselves for a day or a week, and then they slip back into old identity because they think it's who they really are. It's not. It's just who they've practiced being. Identity is practice. Confidence is practice. Self-belief is practice. Expectation is practice. Acting as if things work out for you is practice. You're not lying to yourself. You're training yourself. You're teaching your mind to operate from a higher level of self-trust. You're reshaping the lens you see life through. When your identity shifts, your emotions follow, your decisions follow, your habits follow, your relationships follow, your energy follows. Your entire internal world adjusts to match the person you believe yourself to be. And from that place, you don't have to force transformation. You naturally create it. Because the moment you change who you are on the inside, the world begins to reflect that change right back to you. Expectation is one of the most underrated forces shaping your life. Most people think their circumstances determine how they feel, how they think, and how they act, but it's actually their expectations that quietly guide everything. Expectation is the filter that tells your mind what to look for, what to focus on, and what to believe. You could have the same life, the same opportunities, the same skills, but if your expectation is negative, you'll see limits everywhere. And if your expectation is positive, you'll see doorways everywhere. Your mind loves certainty. It craves patterns. It's always looking for something predictable so it can prepare you. But here's the wild part. Whatever you expect, your mind will start collecting evidence to confirm it. If you wake up expecting the day to be stressful, your brain will scan for stress. If you expect people to be rude, you'll notice every rude person. If you expect things to go wrong, you'll magnify every inconvenience. You create a self-fulfilling loop without realizing it. But when you shift that expectation and begin acting as if things will work out for you, you give your mind a different pattern to follow. Suddenly, you're not scanning for danger. You're scanning for opportunity. You're noticing solutions instead of problems. You're paying attention to the things that are going right instead of the things going wrong. And that shift changes the emotional tone of your life. Expectations don't just change how you see the world, they change how the world responds to you. Think about a person who expects things to work out. They walk differently. They speak differently. They project a kind of quiet confidence that draws people in. They approach challenges with creativity instead of panic. They're not afraid to try again because they don't expect failure to define them. They expect it to refine them. This is why expectation matters so much. It's not fantasy, it's not delusion. It's a mental GPS. When you expect positive outcomes, your brain begins organizing your choices and actions toward those outcomes. You think more clearly. You take more intentional steps, you become more flexible in your problem solving. You trust yourself more, and that creates a ripple effect in everything you do. The opposite is true too. When people expect the worst, they shrink, they hesitate, they overthink, they talk themselves out of opportunities. They interact with life like they're trying not to get hurt instead of trying to grow. And most of the time, they're not even aware they're doing it. They've practiced expecting disappointment for so long that it feels natural. But expectation isn't destiny. It's conditioning, and conditioning can be changed. You can train your mind to expect better outcomes. You can teach your brain to look for progress, possibility, alignment, timing, and growth instead of threats and obstacles. It starts by deciding that your old expectations no longer reflect who you're becoming. When you begin to act as if things always work out for you, your expectation shifts from survival mode to expansion mode. Instead of waking up thinking, I hope things don't fall apart, you wake up thinking, I wonder how today will serve me. That one shift in expectation changes how you interpret everything that happens to you. A delay doesn't feel like a failure. It feels like preparation. A challenge doesn't feel like punishment. It feels like training. A setback doesn't feel like the end. It feels like redirection. And people misunderstand this. They think expecting things to work out means everything will be easy. It doesn't. It means you trust that even the hard things are working in your favor. That trust creates emotional stability. It calms your nervous system. It gives you patience. It prevents your mind from spiraling into fear. It keeps you grounded when things feel uncertain. And when you stay grounded, you make better decisions. You communicate more clearly. You bounce back faster. You stay open to solutions that you wouldn't have noticed in a fearful state. Expectation also shapes your behavior in ways you don't even notice. When you expect the best, you show up for your goals more consistently. You follow through. You take action even when you're unsure. You put yourself in rooms you used to avoid. You speak up. You take up space. You live like someone who believes their results matter. And that belief is incredibly magnetic. You have to understand something. Your expectation is not just a prediction of the future. It's a signal to your brain about who you believe you are in the present. And you will always behave in alignment with who you believe yourself to be. So when you shift your expectation from fear to trust, from doubt to belief, from things happen to me to things happen for me, the entire trajectory of your life begins to bend in your favor. For two, emotional discipline is one of the most powerful skills you can ever develop because it becomes the foundation of every decision you make and every action you take. People talk a lot about mindset, belief habits, and motivation, but none of that sticks if you don't learn how to lead your emotions instead of letting your emotions lead you. And when I talk about acting as if everything always works out, what I'm really talking about is cultivating the emotional discipline to choose your state, no matter what is happening around you. Most people live in reaction mode. Something goes wrong and they spiral. Someone disappoints them and they shut down. A plan changes and they panic. They wake up anxious and the rest of the day collapses because they don't know how to interrupt the emotional pattern. They think their emotions are in control of them instead of realizing they have control over how they respond. If your emotions decide the direction of your life, then your life will always be unpredictable and unstable. But if you decide the direction and your emotions follow your intention, everything becomes steadier. Acting as if everything always works out isn't about suppressing emotions or pretending you don't feel fear or doubt. It's about creating enough emotional space to navigate those feelings without letting them dictate your choices. It's about saying, yes, this is stressful, but stress isn't going to choose my next step. It's about saying, yes, this is uncertain, but uncertainty isn't going to decide my identity. Emotional discipline means you acknowledge what you feel, but you act from what you know. And you know you're capable. You know you can handle things. You know you've survived every moment you thought you wouldn't. You know that fear has never been a reliable advisor. You know that panic has never been the path to clarity. When you act from that knowing, your emotional experience shifts. You move from emotional reactivity to emotional leadership. Think about someone who believes everything always works out. They're not emotionless. They're not numb. They're simply grounded. When something unexpected happens, they don't immediately jump to the worst case scenario. They don't catastrophize. They don't collapse. They take a breath. They assess. They respond with intention instead of impulse. Emotional discipline gives them power, not power over other people, but power over themselves. And when you have that kind of power, you stop feeling like life is happening to you and start feeling like life is happening with you. You stop getting thrown around by every small inconvenience. You stop giving your peace away to things that don't matter. You stop letting fear stop you from showing up. You stop letting doubt talk you out of opportunities. You stop letting impulsive emotions ruin relationships, goals, or momentum. Every goal requires emotional discipline. Want a better body? You have to show up on the days you don't feel like it. Want a better career? You have to stay focused when distractions try to pull you away. Want better relationships? You have to communicate instead of react. Want more confidence? You have to act confidently before you feel confident. All of that requires emotional discipline. And here's the amazing thing, the more emotionally disciplined you become, the more your life opens up. You start noticing opportunities because you're not blinded by panic. You start trusting people because you're not wired for defensiveness. You start trying things because fear no longer feels like a stop sign. You start creating momentum because you no longer shut down when things get difficult. Emotional discipline is also what allows you to stay consistent with acting as if things always work out. Because let's be real, you won't always feel like everything is working out. Some days will feel heavy. Some moments will hit harder than you expected. Some chapters will take more from you than they give. But emotional discipline means you don't abandon yourself during those moments. You hold the identity, you hold the expectation, you hold the belief that this moment is temporary and the outcome is still unfolding in your favor. This isn't about perfection, it's about direction. It's about choosing calm when chaos tries to take over. Choosing belief when doubt whispers in your ear. Choosing patience when life tests your timing. Choosing alignment when anxiety wants to rush you. These choices build something inside you, a type of emotional strength that makes you unshakable. And once you become unshakable, life stops feeling like a threat and starts feeling like an adventure. You stop bracing for impact and start leaning into possibility. You begin trusting yourself on a deeper level. You begin trusting the process. And that trust becomes the emotional anchor that keeps you stable while life rearranges itself to match the person you're becoming. Because emotional discipline isn't about controlling what you feel. It's about controlling what you choose to believe in the moments that matter most. I'll lead your emotions, and your life will follow. When you begin acting as if everything always works out, something powerful happens inside you. You stop hesitating. You stop second-guessing yourself. You stop waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, the perfect set of guarantees before you move. Instead, you start taking action with a quiet confidence, almost like you already know the path will unfold even if you can't see it yet. And that's the moment your life starts to shift, when belief turns into behavior. Because here's the truth: the universe responds to movement. It responds to direction. It responds to decisions. Most people don't get what they want because they keep talking about it, thinking about it, stressing about it, but they never move. They never put themselves in motion long enough for momentum to kick in. They wait for certainty, not realizing action is the very thing that creates certainty. When you act as if everything always works out, your actions carry a different energy. You're no longer acting from fear. You're acting from alignment. It's the difference between walking with your head down, hoping things go right, and walking with your shoulders back, knowing you'll figure it out. People can feel that energy. Opportunities respond to that energy, and your own mind sharpens because of that energy. Think about it. When you believe things won't work out, your actions are small, cautious, hesitant. You tiptoe through life hoping not to fail. You play not to lose. You try to avoid disappointment. But when you believe things will work out, your actions grow. You take bigger swings. You speak up. You say yes to things you used to avoid. You stretch your capacity. You try again when others quit. And even if something goes wrong, you don't collapse, you adjust, you learn, you pivot, and you move again. Acting as if isn't about pretending everything is perfect. It's about behaving like someone who knows they can handle the imperfect. Someone who trusts that every setback is redirection. Someone who has faith that every chapter is taking them somewhere meaningful. Someone who refuses to live stuck. And when you take action with that mindset, you start seeing evidence everywhere. You realize how many things actually do work out. You notice how often timing aligns. You notice how often people show up for you, how often solutions appear, how often you grow into exactly who you need to become. And when your brain sees this evidence, guess what? It doubles down on the belief. It deepens the trust. It strengthens the identity. Soon acting as if becomes acting as you are. You stop forcing confidence and start embodying it. You stop trying to convince yourself and start trusting yourself. You stop hoping life will work out and start expecting it. And when expectation meets aligned action, life responds in ways that feel almost magical. But this alignment doesn't happen from thinking alone. It happens from doing the uncomfortable things, doing the things you've delayed, doing the things your future self would thank you for, doing the things that match the identity you're stepping into. Every action you take is like casting a vote for the person you want to become. One vote won't change everything, but repeated votes shift the identity. And when identity shifts, your entire life shifts with it. Think about a person who believes everything works out for them. How do they act? They try again after failing. They take risks. They don't panic under pressure. They make decisions faster. They trust their intuition. They follow through. They see challenges as part of the path, not signs to turn around. They don't beg life to be easy. They become stronger, clearer, more intentional. This is what aligned action looks like. Action that matches the version of you who already has the life you want. No, it's not perfect. It's not fearless. It's simply consistent. Consistent enough that the universe begins rearranging itself around your momentum. You can visualize all day. You can journal all day. You can dream all day. But nothing pulls the universe into motion like you moving first. Action tells the world you're serious. Action tells your brain you're ready. Action tells momentum to show up. And when you act as if everything always works out, you start waiting for permission and start creating openings. You stop thinking small and start expanding your belief in what's possible. You begin trusting the process not because it's easy, but because you finally decided to meet life halfway. Everything changes the moment you choose to act from trust instead of fear, from identity instead of insecurity, from belief instead of doubt. Because life doesn't reward hesitation, it rewards alignment. I act like everything always works out and watch how often it does. So here's what I want you to take with you. Your life transforms the moment you decide to live from a higher identity, to expect better outcomes, to lead your emotions, and to take aligned action. Not someday, not when everything feels perfect, not when you finally feel ready, right now, in this moment. Because the version of you who believes everything always works out is already inside you. waiting for you to stop negotiating with fear and start partnering with possibility. You don't have to know every step. You don't need the entire plan. You just need to trust that the path reveals itself to the person who keeps moving. You need to trust that your identity shapes your reality. You need to trust that expectation becomes direction. You need to trust that emotional discipline keeps you aligned when life tests you. And you need to trust that action is the language the universe responds to. Everything changes when you shift from doubt to certainty, from fear to belief, from waiting to creating, from reacting to leading, from hoping to expecting. Act as if everything always works out, not because life is perfect, but because you are capable, resourceful, adaptable, and guided. And the moment you step into that version of yourself, the world around you begins to shift in ways you can't even imagine yet. Because when you show up like someone who knows they're meant for more, life rises to meet you.